Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in everyone's life when you must draw a line between who you are and who the world expects you to be. Today, I want to talk about that line. I want to talk about why you should stop explaining yourself. You see, for most of my life, I was too much of something, too ambitious, too loud, too bold, too Indian, too Western, too opinionated, too confident, and every time I stepped out into the world, I felt like I had to apologize for being me. I would explain, defend, dilute, and shrink, just to make other people feel comfortable, but here's the truth: you don't owe anyone an explanation for who you are, not for your dreams, not for your background. Not for your success, not for your failures, not for how you dress, who you love, or what you believe in. Let me tell you something real: you are not on trial. When I started working internationally, I was told to lose my accent. I was advised to change my name. I was asked to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. But instead of conforming, I carved out my own space. I embraced everything that made me me. Because if you keep trying to explain yourself to fit in, you will never stand out. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a difference between accountability and approval seeking. Be accountable to your values, your integrity, your craft. But do not live your life trying to convince others that you deserve a seat at the table. Make your own damn table. You don't need to justify why you said no to that opportunity. You don't need to explain why you're still single or why you chose not to be. You don't need to defend your hustle, your ambition, your pace, or your peace. Because the moment you start living for your own approval, you become unstoppable. And here's the beautiful part: when you stop explaining yourself, you give others permission to do the same. You liberate people just by being unapologetically authentic. So today, I urge you, stop overthinking, stop apologizing, stop editing yourself for someone else's comfort, speak your truth, own your space, wear your identity like armor, and remember, the ones who love you really love you. They don't need an explanation. And the ones who demand one, they probably don't deserve one. So stop explaining yourself. Start being yourself and let the world adjust. You don't owe anyone an explanation. That may sound simple, but it's one of the most freeing truths you can embrace in your life. From the time we're young, we're conditioned to believe that our actions, our choices, even our identities need to be justified to others. We learn to seek permission, to look for validation, to soften the parts of ourselves that might be misunderstood. But the moment you stop explaining yourself, you begin to reclaim your power. You are not on trial. Your life is not a courtroom where every decision must be defended to friends, family, colleagues, or strangers. Whether it's the career you chose, the way you look, the person you love, or the dreams you chase, those are yours and yours alone. The need to constantly explain or justify your choices creates a burden that holds you back. It wastes your time, your energy, and your spirit, and for what? For the comfort of people who may never fully understand you anyway. The truth is, people will always have opinions, some will judge, some will misunderstand you on purpose. Some will expect you to shrink so that they can feel bigger. But trying to please everyone is not your job. You don't need to make your path make sense to others. What matters is that it makes sense to you. You are the one who lives with the consequences, the rewards, and the risks of your decisions. Not them. There's incredible power in simply saying, "This is who I am," and leaving it at that. No backstory. No disclaimer, just presence. When you let go of the need to explain yourself, you also let go of the invisible chains that keep you small. You begin to walk through the world with a kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to scream for attention. It just is. This doesn't mean being arrogant or dismissive. It means being grounded in your truth. It means honoring your own instincts and knowing that your self-worth is not up for debate. It means trusting that the people who genuinely love and respect you won't require explanations, and the ones who do probably haven't earned the right to hear them. So next time you feel the urge to justify your life, pause. Breathe and remember, your authenticity speaks louder than any explanation ever could. Being unapologetically authentic means showing up as your true self without shrinking, editing, or filtering to make others more comfortable. It means owning every part of who you are: your voice, your values, your roots, your flaws, and your fire. In a world that constantly tries to mold people into something easier to categorize or control, choosing to be fully and honestly yourself is a radical act of courage. From a young age, many of us are taught to tone it down. Don't be too loud, don't be too emotional, don't be too ambitious, don't dream too big. We learn that acceptance often comes at the cost of authenticity. So we start trimming our edges, masking our truth, and packaging ourselves into a version that we hope will be more palatable, more likable, more acceptable. But that version, it's not real, and pretending to be something you're not eventually becomes exhausting. When you choose to be unapologetically authentic, you stop performing. You stop seeking approval in rooms that were never built for you. You stop explaining away your brilliance to make it less intimidating. Instead, you take up space, because you deserve too. You trust your voice even when it shakes. You stop asking, will they like me? And start asking, do I feel proud of who I am? Authenticity doesn't mean perfection. It means being real even when it's messy. It means standing in your truth even when it's unpopular. And it means being okay with not being everyone's cup of tea. Because you're not supposed to be. You are not here to be universally liked. You are here to be real, to be bold, and to be uniquely you. When you live authentically, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. You remind people that it's okay to be different, that it's okay to show up in their fullness, and that kind of freedom, that's priceless. It changes not only how you live, it changes how others experience themselves through your example. Choosing authenticity will cost you something. It might cost you some fake friends. It might shake up a few relationships. It might even make some people uncomfortable. But what you gain is worth so much more. Self-respect, inner peace, clarity, and the power that comes from living a life that actually belongs to you. So show up as you are. Loud, quiet, wild, soft, fierce, kind, however you were made, because there is nothing more powerful than a person who's not afraid to be exactly themselves. Approval is not the goal, self-respect is. This shift in perspective changes everything. When you stop living for the applause and start living in alignment with your values, you begin to walk differently, speak differently, and choose differently. It's natural to want to be liked, to be seen, to be validated. We're human, but the danger comes when we start chasing approval at the expense of our own truth. That's when we lose ourselves in trying to meet everyone else's expectations. Trying to please others is a trap. It's a moving target. One day you're too quiet, the next you're too outspoken. One group thinks you're too ambitious, another thinks you're not driven enough. You end up stuck in a cycle of adjusting, performing, and apologizing, hoping that eventually someone will give you the green light to be yourself. But here's the reality: you'll never please everyone. And the more you try, the further you drift from the person you're meant to be. Self-respect, on the other hand, is solid. It comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. It's the inner compass that doesn't sway with public opinion. When you live with self-respect, you don't need 100 people to clap for you. You just need to be able to look in the mirror and be proud of the person staring back. You measure your success not by likes or praise, but by whether you stayed true to yourself. There will always be moments when approval seems tempting. Maybe you're in a room where everyone thinks a certain way, and it would be easier to just nod along. Maybe you're pursuing a dream that people don't understand, and it would be simpler to give it up just to avoid the judgment. But in those moments, remember this: approval fades, trends change, but the way you feel about yourself, the respect you have for your own choices, that's what lasts. Choosing self-respect over approval doesn't mean you never listen to feedback or grow. It means you filter what you hear through your own wisdom. It means you recognize that not every voice gets a vote in your life. It's the difference between being open and being easily influenced, between evolving and abandoning who you are. So let go of the need to be liked by everyone. Like yourself, respect yourself, back yourself, and when you do, you'll attract the kind of people, opportunities, and peace that don't require constant performance. Because the highest approval you'll ever need is your own. Owning your narrative means taking control of your story before someone else writes it for you. In a world where labels, stereotypes, and assumptions are handed out freely, it becomes even more important to define yourself on your own terms. Your accent, your culture, your appearance, your background, these are not things to hide or fix. They are not flaws, they are your identity, they are your strength, and when you stop apologizing for them and instead begin to own them, you become unshakable. There will always be people who try to box you in. They'll tell you how you should look, speak, dress, dream, or even exist. Sometimes it's subtle, a suggestion to tone it down in a meeting, or a backhanded compliment about how surprisingly well you speak. Sometimes it's more direct, being told you need to change to succeed. I've heard those things too, but here's the truth. Every time you compromise who you are just to fit in, you lose a little piece of your authenticity. And eventually the cost becomes too high. When you own your narrative, you reclaim your voice. You stop letting others define your worth or rewrite your identity. You begin to say, yes, this is my story. This is my journey, and I'm proud of every chapter. Even the ones that were messy, painful, or misunderstood, because those parts shaped your strength. Your story doesn't need to be edited to make others comfortable. It needs to be told honestly to make you powerful. So many people spend years hiding pieces of themselves because they were told those parts wouldn't be accepted. But the irony is, the more you hide, the more you feel disconnected from others and from yourself. The real connection, the real impact, comes from being fully seen, not the curated version of you, but the real one, the one that's layered, complex, and completely human. When you walk into a room owning your story, you don't wait for permission to belong. You you belong because you bring something real, something no one else can replicate. You show others what confidence rooted in truth looks like. You inspire people who are still trying to find the courage to do the same. So don't let the world reduce you to a label or a stereotype. Speak your truth with pride. Carry your heritage, your accent, your identity like a crown. Because the story of who you are is not something to be explained. It's something to be celebrated. And when you own it fully, no one can use it against you. Creating your own space is about no longer waiting for someone to invite you in. It's about recognizing your worth even when others overlook it, and deciding that you will not be defined by someone else's standards or systems. For too long, many of us are taught to wait for permission to be chosen, to be seen, to be given a seat at the table. But what if the table was never built with you in mind? What if the room you're trying to enter was never meant to welcome your voice? That's when you stop knocking and start building. There is power in choosing to carve out your own lane. It takes courage to walk a path that hasn't been paved for you, to show up where people don't expect you, and to lead when no one handed you the mic. But it's also where the magic happens. When you build your own space, you get to shape the rules. You get to bring your full self, unapologetically, without needing to compromise your identity for access or approval. Sometimes people will try to make you feel like you're asking for too much. They'll say you should be grateful for whatever scraps of opportunity you get, but you weren't born to beg, you were born to create, to innovate, to lead. The world doesn't evolve when everyone plays it safe or sticks to the script. It evolves when people who were never meant to win decide that they're going to succeed anyway, and take others with them. Building your own space doesn't mean doing it alone. It means creating a platform where others like you can stand tall too. It means turning your progress into purpose, your voice into impact. When you stop waiting and start creating, you don't just change your life, you create ripples that empower others to do the same. You become a force that opens doors, that shifts culture, that redefines what's possible. And yes, it's harder. It takes more resilience, more risk, more self-belief. But it's also more rewarding, because what you build for yourself can never be taken away by someone else. You're not at the mercy of someone else's yes. You are your own yes. So stop waiting to be invited in. Stop shrinking to fit. If there's no seat at the table, build a bigger table, build a louder voice, build a legacy. Because when you create your own space, you don't just fit in. You stand out, you lead, and you last. When you stop explaining yourself and start living fully as who you are, you do more than just set yourself free. You become a living example for others. Your authenticity becomes a quiet revolution. It tells people, without saying a word, that it's okay to show up without apology, that they don't have to hide, perform, or earn their worth through approval, that being themselves is enough. We live in a world where so many people are afraid to be real. They're scared of being judged, misunderstood, or rejected. They've been told over and over again that they need to change to be accepted, so they edit themselves, they smile when they want to cry, they agree when they want to disagree, They stay quiet when their voice is burning to be heard. But when someone dares to be unapologetically themselves, it disrupts that cycle. It creates space for honesty. It gives others the courage to ask, "What if I could be real too?" Your decision to stop explaining yourself doesn't just empower you, it empowers everyone watching you. People are always watching, even when you think they aren't. Whether it's your younger sibling, your colleague, your friend, or a complete stranger, someone is noticing how you move through the world. They see your confidence, your boundaries, your ability to say no without guilt, and slowly they start to believe they can do it too. This is how culture shifts, not always through loud declarations, but through quiet bravery. Through one person showing up as their whole self again and again without apology. And over time, that kind of courage becomes contagious. It spreads, it invites, it opens doors that once seemed shut forever. There will always be people who don't understand you or who expect you to explain your choices. But when you stand firm, when you own your truth without over-explaining it, you teach others to value their truth too. You remind them that they're allowed to take up space exactly as they are. You show them that strength doesn't come from trying to please everyone. It comes from pleasing yourself first, so don't underestimate the power of your authenticity. Don't think it's selfish to stop explaining yourself. It's not. It's a gift, not just to you, but to everyone who's still finding their voice. By being real, you give others permission to be real too. And that is one of the most generous things you can ever do. Thank you.